Hey, fashion lovers, fashion students. So, after my contour class, I went to my practice everything and I mastered my contour pattern so swiftly. Next off, we were given a contour assignment to do. So, I still redid my contour pattern to be sure I mastered it well, which I got correctly without even checking my videos I made after the class. So, I proceed to tracing out my pattern for my contour, and this is me tracing out the bust area. And to be precise, they said we should do a deep V neck. That was generally for everybody, so there was basically, it was just like, how do I put it? It's basically same style for every student in the fashion academy. So this is me tracing out my contour pattern, and guys, watch out for the finished look of my contour. I can't wait to show you guys it. So this is basically, this video is just all about me tracing out my pattern, then I'll show you guys how I cut my fabric, and just watch out. Trust me, you're going to love every bit of it. So I started off with tracing my center front. I followed my contour that. So that's the point I was tracing out my contour that. I was taking my time to trace it out well using my tracing wheel. And at some point I stopped to just check what I was doing. I continued. Then you see I was still tracing out one part of it. It was going all smooth and so nice. At this point I just had to straighten the paper and I followed my lines all out. So I'm getting closer to the end, and I supposed to check again. I saw that it was not really showing off on the other paper I kept underneath it. So I went back to trace again. Oh, mind you, I just yawned. I'm just so tired, but let's just keep this going. So after tracing it out, I make sure I confirm my lines to be so sure I traced exactly that before removing my paper. At this point, you can see me, I was flipping it a bit to be sure I traced out exactly that, because any mistake I made here, made any mistake I make, I will have to start again with a plain pattern paper to trace out. So after I was sure, I removed my masking tape from the pattern which I used to clip it down. So this is me. I'm still trying to remove my masking tape. Then I just pulled it out and check and voila. There we have it. I know you can't really see the trace out pattern because it's a video, but I'm going to show you guys how I traced it out after I was done with my whole tracing out thing. So I was done with the first part, so I moved on to tracing out the second part of the center front. So I moved my paper a bit far from that to make sure that I was able to add my whole sewing allowance to it. So at this point I was closing my bust start here. I had to slash and spread that so I can close my bust start, because I don't need my bust start for this whole contour stuff. So I really need to close it. So I used my phone at that point to hold the paper down, and I still use some masking tape to hold it down. Why am I just yawning? Somebody help me. Okay, so after using my masking tape to hold it down, I stretched out the second part of it. I started with my hip line. I took it up to my waist, to my underbust, to my front bust line, my bust line, and I still followed it. Don't forget I blended that part with my curvature, which I followed to trace out. So for this contour pattern I'm using 25% contour. So that is me tracing out and making sure that I want to yawn again. Tiredness. Pardon me for that. So I was done tracing out that part, then I moved on to the waist side and I traced out that part again. When tracing out, I always make sure I take my possible best not to make any mistake. And if I make mistake, I'll go back and retrace everything. Anyways, this is what you do as a fashion student. Guess what? You guys really need to see the finished look of this whole contour dress. It was so nice. Ah! So I'll make some videos and show you guys how everything grew. And this is my first time actually sewing a contour. And as the first time, ah, Jesus, my work was just so neat and so lovely because even myself, I was just so much proud of myself. So I was still. Why am I just yawning? Oh Christ. So at this point I was done tracing out, so I removed my masking tape and to check what I traced out. It was all good to go. So I had to trace out my center back by moving my paper again, making sure that there's enough space to add my allowance or my sewing allowance rather to that. So at this point, I was arranging the paper well. Honestly, can someone actually count how many times I have yawned in this video? It's so funny. Well, let's just keep this going. Okay. So at this point, I was trying to adjust my phone camera so you guys can see exactly what I want to trace out in this whole stuff. And after adjusting my camera, I brought it very close. I moved my paper a bit closer and also trying to go back to check my camera to make sure that it's exactly at that spot. So after I was done, I flattened my paper where I used my masking tape to hold it down. So that was what I was doing right there. So don't forget I am tracing out my center back for my contour pattern. And mind you, if you want a full video on how to draft a contour pattern, how to trace it out, how to sew and cajun, drop it in the comment section and I will make a full video for you guys. But before that, let's just continue with the whole process of this whole stuff. Okay, so I was still trying to tape it down using my masking tape. I was moving to trace from the Christ me. I'm seeing on it. So I traced from the hip part. I traced it down. I moved again to continue my tracing out. So I'm tracing that part out. Taking my time. The back is just two pieces of the pattern. So that is me still tracing out. I went to the sides and I was tracing out the side, making sure I follow the lines I did for it, and that is me. I always make there's one funny thing about this tracing when you're trying to trace, sometimes it moves out of the line. You have to go back and retrace again in order to get something. In order to get something very, very nice and good. So after I was I done at this point? Let me see. Okay, no, I was still going to trace it out. So I traced out where I was going to stop, and that was me doing just that. Mind you, I stood throughout the whole process of this video just to make sure I get something I want. Very classy, very mindful, very demure. Okay, so at this point, I knew I had to go and check my phone camera because I had cases where I just put my camera and I forget to turn it on. So just to confirm, I went there to do that, and after I was back, I continued with my trace out, and that's me extending the lines. At this point, that was done. I took my pencil to just do some little marking towards it, and by this point, I was talking to someone. Someone asked a question which I can't recall. I was attending to the person while trying to fix my stuff, and after I was done, I went back to check my camera, and I continued to trace out that part very, very well. So, it's all going well. So, the whole video is just about me tracing my contour pattern, and then I'm still tracing my center back at this point. Okay, so after I was done tracing out, since I missed the part, I just had to go back and then retrace everything again. Not really, but not basically everything. I was just retracing the lines, and after that, I just retraced that part to just know where my sewing is starting or where to add my allowance to it. So there will have it. And after that, I just had to break my fingernails, and I wanted to. No, I'm okay. Next off is to trace the armhole or the arm cell of this pattern paper. Mind you, tracing drafting is actually a game changer because number one, you get to save clients material. If you're sewing for clients or for yourself, you don't get to waste material. Everything you have to waste or do should be on your pattern paper. So when you have issues like, oh, this material is not enough for this particular dress, or this material is not enough for this particular dress, is because you cut using your material, not your pattern paper. So there we have it. So learn to draft and cut everything with your pattern paper before transferring to your main fabric. And always make sure you don't cut your main pattern while drafting, because when you make any mistake, you will have to retrace back to it to make your whole corrections. So at this point, I noticed that I did one or two mistakes, and I had to go back and trace it again, which was so tiring and annoying. I felt the pain, but then what is just that? I can just do it, and that was me still tracing out. I make sure I took my time. Oh, no, I didn't even make mistake. I had to trace the posterior cycle, and this is me tracing out my armhole. Mind you, 25% contour. That's what the whole video is all about. So I still went back to trace, keep the tracing wheel going, kept the tracing wheel going, and that is me. I was done tracing out my armhole depth or apple curve. Anyone you understood? Then I don't think that part is actually for the yoke, and I'm using a mesh net for that yoke part. So I decided to trace out something there. That's the shoulder's land, or you can call it the shoulder. So guys, that is not all for the video. I'll be showing you guys the next part of it. So watch out for the next episode or part or next clip of the video. Bye guys. See you guys in my next videos, and love guys. I mean bunch of love surrounded. I so much love you guys. Anyway, see you guys in my next video. Voila!